Hello students, welcome to Skholar, your one-stop solution for IAS preparation. Students, my name is Anubhav Sharma and today we'll be understanding and we'll be discussing the cutoff analysis for UPSC Prelims 2020. Now students, good evening Simran, absolute pleasure meeting you. So students, essentially आज का जो पेपर था, सबसे पहले तो आपको ये ध्यान रखना है, इसके लिए आपने पूरे साल तैयारी की है. इनफैक्ट बहुत स्टूडेंट्स ऐसे भी होंगे जिन्होंने सालों से इस पेपर की तैयारी कर रहे हैं. सो फर्स्ट एंड फॉरमोस्ट आई विश यू लक. आई होप आप सबका पेपर बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छा गया हो. नाउ आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड, क्योंकि पेपर बहुत स्लाइटली ऑन द टफर साइड, तो आपके मन में बहुत सारे सवाल होंगे, बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस होंगे, एंड लेट्स ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड इट. नाउ देर आर टू पार्ट्स ऑफ इट. पहली तो ये है कि हम इसके कट ऑफ एनालिसिस को समझे, जो इसेंशियली अभी हम करेंगे, और दूसरा है हम उसकी डिटेल्ड एनालिसिस विद रिस्पेक्ट टू क्वेश्चंस, वो कितना टफ था, कौन सा क्वेश्चन कौन से पार्ट से आया, इन चीज़ों को समझे. तो स्टूडेंट्स, इसेंशियली हम लोग करेंगे क्या, इस प्रेजेंटेशन में, इस वीडियो में हम लोग समझेंगे द कट ऑफ एनालिसिस ऑफ यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स 2020. एंड स्टूडेंट्स, लेट मी टेल यू, as far as the cutoff analysis is concerned, at least for last 4 years, cutoff analysis which has been done by me and Skholar hasn't gone wrong. So इस बार भी we are hoping to maintain that consistency with respect to cutoff analysis. Fine. Now बात करते हैं UPSC Prelims 2020 की, and the first thing that we need to understand is the subject-wise number of questions that was asked in this year's UPSC exam. और स्टूडेंट्स, यहीं पे बहुत सारी इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ें हम देखेंगे, एक एक करके समझते हैं. तो जब हम जानते हैं कि देर आर 100 क्वेश्चंस विच गेट आस्क्ड इन यूपीएससी, जो प्रीलिम्स होता है, GS1 होता है. जब हम पॉलिटी की बात करते हैं, नंबर ऑफ क्वेश्चंस दैट वर आस्क्ड फ्रॉम पॉलिटी वाज 17. दिस इज नॉट वेरी डिफरेंट फ्रॉम व्हाट एग्जैक्टली इज द ट्रेंड दैट वी सी इन यूपीएससी, कि जनरली इतने सवाल पूछे जाते हैं. अराउंड 12 to 22 is what UPSC is generally asking their questions from polity. With respect to polity, something that must be understood here is कि आसान रहे इस बार पॉलिटी के सवाल मोटे तौर पे. Indeed, there were some questions which were really tricky. Indeed, there were some questions which would require on your part to apply your mind. But overall, if you were to understand the thread of polity questions, you would see that your basic understanding of Lakshmikant along with your good understanding of NCERT was more than enough for you to solve the questions of polity. Now students, in these 17 questions, there were questions like the question that was on judicial review, which a lot of people, lot of students have confused. There was a question on what exactly is the role of bureaucracy, which again can confuse a lot of students. In fact, there was a question with respect to whether preamble can be legally enforced or not. That again is a bit tricky question. Now students, with respect to coverage of this question, discussion of this question, as I have explained, subject wise analysis of all the questions in a very detailed fashion will come about within next 24 hours. उसके बारे में आप ज़्यादा परेशान नहीं हो, फॉर द सिंपल रीजन आज आप एग्जाम दे के आए हैं, थोड़ा आराम कीजिए, थोड़ा रेस्ट कीजिए. अभी लेट्स जस्ट ट्राई टू हैव एन ओवरऑल अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ द पेपर. तो जहाँ तक पॉलिटी की बात है, देयर वर 17 क्वेश्चंस. जहाँ तक एनवायरनमेंट की बात है, एंड दिस इज अगेन स्टूडेंट्स, यू वुड नीड टू बी स्मार्ट अबाउट इन टर्म्स ऑफ अंडरस्टैंडिंग दैट एनवायरनमेंट में 14 क्वेश्चंस आए हैं अब की बार. एंड व्हाट वी हैव डन इज टू कीप अ डिफरेंट सेक्शन इन टर्म्स ऑफ एग्रीकल्चर फ्रॉम एनवायरनमेंट. जनरली अगर आप देखेंगे, बहुत लोग एग्रीकल्चर को एनवायरनमेंट का ही पार्ट मान लेते हैं, बट वी always believe that now agriculture will need to be taken as a separate subject. In fact, one of the things that I have been telling my students is कि आप जो एग्रीकल्चर है उसको आप बहुत ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंस दीजिए. इनफैक्ट अब ये नया तरीके का एक आर्ट एंड कल्चर का सेक्शन हो गया है. Few years back, when art and culture questions started coming in for prelims examination, a lot of students used to treat it as an ancient or medieval history part of the preparation. But essentially, what was required was to treat it as a separate subject in form of art and culture. उसी तरीके से अब एग्रीकल्चर को भी हमें एक स्टैंड अलोन सब्जेक्ट की तरह ट्रीट करना पड़ेगा. इट कैन नॉट बी ट्रीटेड एज अ पार्ट ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट. So keeping that distinction in mind, what exactly do we see? That with respect to environment and agriculture, there were 14 and 9 questions asked. And students, there is no doubt that several of these questions were really tough. Several of these questions were a combination of your understanding of the statics as well as your understanding of the current affairs with respect to both environment and agriculture. अब स्टूडेंट्स आपके मन में एक बात जरूर आएगी that why exactly the weightage of agriculture and environment has been increasing in UPSC for last few years. In fact, मैं तो आपको ये कहूँगा कि आप environment, agriculture, geography को एक साथ देखें. What exactly do we see? What we see is that around 30 questions are getting asked from this section, that is 30% of your paper. Why exactly this aspect of your preparation has become very important? हम लोगों ने हमारी रिवीजन क्लासेस में एज वेल एज हमारी डिस्कशन क्लासेस में इस बात पे एम्फेसाइज किया था दैट नाउ दैट द प्रीलिम्स एग्जामिनेशन फॉर बोथ इंडियन सिविल सर्विसेज एज वेल एज इंडियन फॉरेस्ट सर्विसेज हैज बिकम द सेम. As such, there will be questions in prelims examination which will essentially test the aptitude of the candidate with respect to the syllabus of forest services, with respect to your aptitude of becoming an officer in Indian forest services. इस चीज़ को अगर हम समझते हैं तो हम क्या देखते हैं कि सबसे important aspect of Indian forest services में क्या होंगे? Geography, environment and agriculture. Indeed, जब आप फॉरेस्ट सर्विसेज का मीन्स भी देते हैं तो यही इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट होते हैं आपके मीन्स एग्जामिनेशन के भी. कीपिंग दैट इन माइंड, द इम्पोर्टेंस ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट, एग्रीकल्चर एंड ज्योग्राफी हैज इंक्रीज्ड अ लॉट इन रीसेंट टाइम्स. इनफैक्ट अब एग्रीकल्चर में काफ़ी डिटेल्ड और काफ़ी ट्रिकी सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं, विच इज नॉट वेरी अनलाइक द ट्रेंड दैट वी हैव सीन इन द पास्ट, बट द थिंग दैट हैज चेंज्ड इज द लेवल ऑफ डिफिकल्टी. काफ़ी कठिन, काफ़ी डिफिकल्ट सवाल पूछे गए हैं एग्रीकल्चर में, राइट. नाउ वी टॉक अबाउट द नेक्स्ट इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट दैट इज एंशिएंट इंडिया. नाउ स्टूडेंट्स, एंशिएंट इंडिया हैज ऑलवेज बीन अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पोर्शन फॉर द वेरी सिंपल रीजन, जिसको हम लोग जनरली मानते हैं स्टैटिक पोर्शन का हिस्सा. जो हम स्टैटिक तैयारी करते हैं उसके हिस्से को हम मानते हैं एंशिएंट इंडिया को. अब जब हम स्टैटिक पोर्शन को मानते हैं इसलिए ये बहुत ज़रूरी हो जाता है कि हम इस पोर्शन से कम गलतियां करें. इस बार हम क्या देखते हैं? व्हाट वी सी इज दैट 4 क्वेश्चंस वर आस्क्ड फ्रॉम एंशिएंट इंडिया. These 4 questions were of medium level difficulty while 1 question was really tough. We will again discuss that in our detailed explanation that will come after this. Then with medieval India, again 1 question was there. From modern India, 9 questions were there, and students, while we will have detailed discussion of the 9 questions that was asked in modern India, one thing which is very clear, and that is that several previous year question type of trend has been repeated this year. अगर आप नोटिस करें अभी से 2 साल पहले तक, just 2 years back, there were questions which were being asked which were a lot different from the question that has been asked in the last 2 years. सवाल पूछे जा रहे हैं बुक्स पे, पर्सनैलिटीज पे. दिस यूज्ड टू बी द पैटर्न फॉर क्वेश्चन दैट यूपीएससी यूज्ड टू आस्क समवेयर फ्रॉम 1990 टू 2010. 2011 से एक ट्रेंड में चेंज देखा गया, बट समवेयर वन कैन एक्चुअली सी नाउ कि अब यूपीएससी इज गोइंग बैक टू दैट ट्रेंड इन द लास्ट 2 years. अब वो पर्सनैलिटीज पे फिर से सवाल पूछ रहा है, अब वो फिर से सवाल पूछ रहा है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू द बुक्स दैट हैज बीन रिटन. इवन दिस टाइम देयर वर क्वेश्चंस व्हिच वर फ्रॉम द बुक्स दैट वाज रिटन एट दैट टाइम. देयर वाज वन क्वेश्चन व्हिच वाज वेरी वेरी टफ, a question which it took us a lot of time to really find the answer for. So I can only imagine that people who appeared in this examination, how tough that question would have been for them. Again, we will have a detailed discussion on it. We have a very good faculty who will be dealing with that. With respect to art and culture, there were 4 questions. Again, not very unlike. There was a question with respect to religion. There was a question with respect to the basics that you study in art and culture, so not very different from the trend of the past. Now, economy has seen a very big jump. So what exactly do we see? That 22% of your preparation for your prelims examination was Indian economy, and this is a lot more than the previous 2-3 years. This is where the trend has changed. Now, you may wonder why exactly economy has been given more weightage. Now, one can speculate a lot of reasons for it, but certainly the fact that our Indian economy has taken a hit because of the COVID crisis, because of the lockdown, and the fact that our economy has come down to -24% in the GDP Essentially, UPSC believes that all students, all aspirants for examination should have had a better understanding on questions of economy. That's why you see there is a question on unemployment, there is a question on liberalization, there is a question on reversing trend. All these questions are very important and it is an indicator for all future aspirants कि अब आपको economy में not just you would need to have clarity on the basics, but you would also need to have clarity with respect to the trends emerging in the new world that we live in, right? Now, we come to the SNT. This again was a kind of a googly for this year. इसमें कोई शक की बात नहीं कि जो SNT था साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी वो एक गोगली की तरह था क्योंकि हर तरह के सवाल पूछे गए. बट इंटरेस्टिंगली स्टूडेंट्स, a lot of questions on SNT was actually asked from the notes that we had provided in the current affairs form. This is something that a lot of coaching institutes cannot claim, but we can proudly say that if you have actually gone through the material that we had provided in terms of monthly compilation of current affairs, a lot of questions of science and tech can actually be solved from there. In fact, some of the questions were also there in the prelims test series that we had provided, that we had conducted. Now students, something that you need to understand is that SNT is becoming a very, very important part of your prelims preparation. It is in fact becoming a very important part for your GS paper 3 preparation of your mains examination. SNT पे emphasis बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी होता जा रहा है for the simple reason कि अभी एक ट्रेंड है जो अगर आप नीति आयोग की रिपोर्ट्स भी देखेंगे, अगर आप ARC की रिपोर्ट्स भी देखेंगे कि not only are we looking for bureaucrats, UPSC are looking for technocrats. UPSC are looking for those officers who have an aptitude with respect to understanding the basics of science and tech, the new technologies which are coming. As such, what do we see? There have been questions which has been on NFC, there have been questions with respect to several technologies. This year too, there were questions with respect to other technologies, right? So this is broadly the overall breakup of the UPSC. What exactly are some of the points? That the weightage of science and tech and economy has increased. That's something that we need to keep in mind. Secondly, the nature of science and tech questions has changed a bit. Now they are actually asking on the analytical part of it, application oriented part of it. Then when we look at the polity, modern India, geography, the trend with respect to the number of questions asked and the weightage of these important parts have remained the same. And students, यहीं पे बहुत ज़रूरी हो जाता है कि आप ज्योग्राफी, पॉलिटी, मॉडर्न इंडिया इनके सवाल गलत ना करें, बिकॉज दिस इज वेयर यू क्रिएट द कोर ऑफ द स्कोर दैट यू विल गेट विद रिस्पेक्ट टू यूपीएससी प्रीलिम्स. ठीक बात. इसके बाद एग्रीकल्चर हैज बिकम अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट ट्रेंड. दिस अगेन इज समथिंग दैट वी हैव डिस्कस्ड, राइट. अब बात करते हैं विथ रिस्पेक्ट टू कट ऑफ, और यहाँ पे काफ़ी सारी इंटरेस्टिंग बातें हैं जो हमें पता चलेंगी. Now students, when we look at the cutoff of year 2017, what do we see? We see that the cutoff was 105.34, and there we are just talking about general, and for Indian Forest Services it was 121.34, and in 18 it came down to 98, and in 19 it again was 98. But with respect to Indian Forest Services, what do we see? That the cutoff from 121.34 came down to 112 and then to 116. Now students, with respect to this, that is civil services examination cutoff of last 3 years, let me tell you that our prediction has gone right for all these 3 years. For all these 3 years, we were able to gauge what exactly was the difficulty level and what exactly was the competition that year. Keeping that in mind, let me tell you that what we think that this year the expected cutoff would be anywhere from 92 to 94 for civil services examination, and it won't be more than 110 for Indian Forest Service examination. Now you may wonder, sir आप 92 to 94 क्यों कह रहे हैं? आप अगर आपको सर लग रहा है टफ है तो काफ़ी नीचे जाना चाहिए. अगर आपको लग रहा है कि इतना टफ नहीं था तो 98 के आसपास ही रहना चाहिए. Let me tell you the reason why we believe 92 to 94 will be the cutoff this year. And let me tell you one more thing just before that, कि हम लोगों की जो कट ऑफ एनालिसिस थी वो एक वेग आइडिया से नहीं थी. हम लोगों ने इनफैक्ट अपनी स्टूडेंट से बात की है, बहुत सारे एक्सपर्ट से बात की है. हम लोगों ने उन लोगों से बात की who are already in the service, what exactly was their experience, what exactly do they think is going to be the cutoff. एंड हमने सिर्फ उन लोगों से बात की है जिन लोगों ने आंसर की मिला के अपने आंसर्स को देखा है, अनलाइक सेवरल अदर इंस्टीट्यूट्स जो क्या करते हैं वो उन लोगों से पूछ लेते हैं जिन्होंने ना अभी तक अपने आंसर की से अपने सोल्यूशंस मिलाए नहीं है। तो इसमें जनरली एक इन्फ्लेटेड फिगर आता है। Be that as it may, why exactly 92 to 94 will be the cutoff this year? The reason is very simple. First and foremost, what we need to understand is that the level of difficulty of the examination was slightly on the higher side as compared to 2019. Whenever there is an increase in the level of difficulty, it is very obvious to see a certain degree of decline in the cutoff for that year. बट जनरली ये जो एस्पेक्ट है वो मिटिगेट हो जाता था एक अलग एस्पेक्ट से, वो ये दैट एवरी ईयर वी आर सीइंग अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल हु आर अपीयरिंग इन द एग्जामिनेशन। एवरी ईयर व्हाट वी सी कि बहुत सारे लोग एग्जामिनेशन में अपीयर होते हैं, कंपटीशन हर साल इंक्रीज होता है। सो इवन इफ द डिफिकल्टी ऑफ द पेपर हैज इंक्रीज, वन वुड से दैट द कट ऑफ विल स्टिल रिमेन ऑलमोस्ट द सेम बिकॉज ऑफ द फैक्ट कि डिफिकल्टी इंक्रीज हुई बट कॉम्पिटिशन भी इंक्रीज हो गया। इस साल वी आर लिविंग इन अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग सिचुएशन। Not only the difficulty of the paper has increased, the trend of the question has also changed. So even though we might be having that set of people who have really prepared well, they have prepared well with respect to the trend of the question of last 4-5 years, even for those people it is going to be very tough. Some of the questions which I just took examples of can actually confuse the best of minds, and that is where I believe there is a chance that we will see a very visible drop in the cutoff. There is one more reason which we need to consider here, and that is the COVID. Now, students might argue that sir, अगर prelims postpone हो गया, that means a lot of time was there for students to prepare in a more meaningful manner. As such, cutoff तो decrease नहीं होना चाहिए क्योंकि preparation level बढ़ गया. Agree? A valid point. But then you also need to think about the fact that the questions that got asked is not very much in line with the kind of preparation students are doing. So even if you might have invested a lot of time in current affairs, there was no direct question from current affairs. As such, whatever extra effort students have put in hasn't quite helped them in order to reap benefit in terms of getting more marks. The point I'm trying to say is that indeed you need to put in a lot of hard work, but still the change in trend is really going to be a very big factor in terms of what exactly is going to be the cutoff. And I, in my wisdom, believe, we at Skholar believe it is not going to be more than 94, and it may very well be around 91-92 mark. I hope you are able to understand why exactly do we think the cutoff is going to come down. Now, you may again think one more factor that sir, अगर आप कह रहे कि पेपर टफ था, even those people who are already in service, when they are preparing for the exam, when they are giving the exam, they are also finding it tough. Then why the cutoff has come down to only by 5 to 6 marks? And the reason is again very simple कि essentially आप अगर UPSC के सिस्टम को देखेंगे, प्रीलिम्स के सिस्टम को देखेंगे, हम क्या पाएंगे? जो पूरा पेपर होता है प्रीलिम्स का वो इस तरह से डिजाइंड होता है that there is a core of easy questions, and if you are solving these easy questions, you are able to get to that goal. So let's say there were around 30 to 40 doable questions and a good serious aspirant was able to get this right. Essentially what we see is that whatever the questions that student will attempt after that, he will be able to get reasonable marks in it, if not very high marks. क्योंकि अगर आप थोड़े से गेस वर्क भी करेंगे, एजुकेटेड गेस करके भी आप ऑप्शंस को टिक करेंगे, what exactly will you see? What you will see is that still you will be able to manage some marks. इसीलिए howsoever the difficulty of the paper go, one can very well argue that UPSC cutoff will not actually increase by that margin. कहने का मतलब ये है कि अगर 2019 से पेपर की डिफिकल्टी लेवल 20% इंक्रीज हुई है, इसका ये कतई मतलब नहीं है कि कट ऑफ भी 20% डिक्रीज होगा. थिंग दैट मस्ट बी केप्ट इन माइंड इज कि कट ऑफ के डिक्रीज होने का प्रपोर्शन इज नॉट सो मच रिलेटेड ओनली टू द टफनेस ऑफ द पेपर, it is actually more related to the number of attempts that an average aspirant is doing. And क्योंकि एक अच्छा average aspirant is attempting anywhere from 80 to 90, what we see that the probability of the cutoff to come down from 92 to 94 seems very, very unlikely. So what exactly are the broad points that we are getting from here? The first broad point is that there is going to be a drop in the cutoff. Second, the drop in the cutoff will not be very high. Last year the cutoff was 98. This year the cutoff is going to be anywhere from 92 to 94. Third thing, there has been a shift in the trend of questions that UPSC is asking, and then now you would need to prepare according to this new shifted trend. I hope all your doubts, all your issues with respect to the analysis of the UPSC cutoff has been resolved, and if you have any doubts, let's answer them one by one. So let me just see the questions which students are having. Okay, so let me start with Ishadeep. I'm glad many questions came from Skholar test series. This is, yep, I'm glad that you were able to solve it. I think what Ishadeep is saying is that he had attempted many of the test series that we had provided, and several of the questions have come directly from there. In fact, if you actually have a look at the SNT questions, they were directly from the test series. Even with respect to polity, several of the important topics that we had covered for polity, the questions were directly from there. When the detailed analysis of it will come, we will also give you the reference of the questions, right? Then we have Munna, who says that I'm BA final year. Next year I shall appear for this examination. I want your valuable tips. So Munna, we will be having a session with respect to all the people who are in their undergrad, people who are going to prepare for their first year, and we will be giving a very detailed mentorship sort of a program in which we will also track your progress, how exactly are you going about it. In fact, one of the things that we are doing right now is to start an NCERT batch for students like you. An NCERT batch where every important NCERT from 6th standard to 12th standard will be covered in a very detailed manner, in a manner which is not being done by any institute right now. तो ये जो कोर्स है, ये जो पूरा हम NCERT का कोर्स बना रहे हैं, वो आप जैसे स्टूडेंट्स के लिए ही बना रहे हैं. एंड मुन्ना, लेट मी अश्योर यू, NCERT से हर साल सवाल UPSC प्रीलिम्स में आते हैं. ऐसे सवाल जिसका आंसर हम लोग गूगल में ढूंढते रह जाते हैं, वो हमें 9, 10, 11 की NCERT में मिल जाता है. आप समझ रहे हैं? सो दिस इज दैट. नाउ व्हाट एग्जैक्टली, ओके, cutoff would be higher this time, or at least 2 to 3 months more than last year. Akhilesh के opinion है the cutoff will be slightly higher. I think Akhilesh, this year the cutoff is going to be slightly on the lesser side, as I've explained you. Because of COVID, what has happened is a lot of people have not prepared the same manner. The toughness of the paper was there, and there are no direct questions from current affairs. So in our opinion, we believe that the cutoff is going to be less. Akhilesh again is saying that I'm getting 103. So Akhilesh, I think you should prepare for your mains examination. For any guidance, Akhilesh, you can contact Skholar and we will help you in whatever capacity we can. Then we have Rahul. I am a beginner. How to start? Again, the same question that we already dealt, Rahul. That we will be having sessions for students who are going for their first attempt or who are still in their undergrad. They are still doing their graduation. They want to have a base for their preparation. In fact, one thing that you should do is to check out our NCERT program that we are going to start very shortly. Then Abhishek, Nishan, why are you restricted? Message, okay. मुझे कोई बताएगा क्या? What? I don't know. Okay, so I think that's about it. We don't have any other question right now. We have dealt with all the questions. So students, finally what I would want to tell you is कि हम लोग अभी डिटेल्ड एनालिसिस ऑफ दी आंसर्स डालेंगे. हमारी कोशिश रहेगी कि 100% एक्यूरेसी के साथ आए. दैट्स व्हाई वी टेक स्लाइटली मोर टाइम. द आइडिया इज टू गिव यू अ डिटेल्ड एनालिसिस एंड एब्सोल्युटली एक्यूरेट आंसर की. आज आप एटलीस्ट रेस्ट करें. आज आप कोशिश करें 1 दिन 2 दिन आप आराम से अच्छी नींद लें. हो सकता है कि आपके कट ऑफ से ऊपर आ रहे हैं, कट ऑफ के आसपास आ रहे हैं. माई सजेशन टू यू वुड बी दैट यू स्टार्ट प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर सिविल सर्विसेज. मेंस एग्जामिनेशन, मेंस इज गोइंग टू हैपन इन जनवरी, तो बहुत ज़्यादा टाइम है नहीं. अगर आपके कट ऑफ दैट इज 90 से काफ़ी कम आ रहे हैं, फिर भी चिंता की कोई बात नहीं है. पेपर थोड़ा टिपिकल था, पेपर थोड़ा कॉम्प्लेक्स था. वी वुड नीड टू हैव अ बेटर स्ट्रैटेजी एज टू हाउ वी नीड टू गो अबाउट इट. द होल आइडिया इज दैट हाउ एग्जैक्टली डू वी लर्न फ्रॉम आवर मिस्टेक्स. We at Skholar will help you to learn in terms of not letting you to do the same mistakes. हमारी टेस्ट सीरीज, हमारे NCERT कोर्स, हमारा फुल कोर्स, everything is designed in a manner in which we increase your chances of clearing this examination. तो आप उसकी चिंता ना करें. मेन चीज़ आपको क्या मन में ध्यान रखना है कि this exam is not a sprint, this is a marathon. इसमें कमिटमेंट की बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है और आपकी कमिटमेंट और डेडिकेशन का टेस्ट यही होगा कि आप हार ना मानें। इसके लिए एक चीज़ और जो ज़रूरी है वो ये है फोकस रखना, और फोकस तभी रहता है जब आप एक शांत मन से तैयारी करते हैं, व्हेन यू इंश्योर दैट यू आर गिविंग योरसेल्फ प्रॉपर रेस्ट। टेक प्रॉपर रेस्ट, take some days off, then again look at the mistakes that you have done in your prelims examination. Just jot down those points which you would keep in mind for your next attempt, and for any help in any way, please contact us as Skholar. We would be very happy to help you and make you realize all your aspirations. I hope this session was helpful, was good. अगर कोई डाउट है आपके मन में, कोई सवाल है, आप कभी भी स्कॉलर पे आ सकते हैं। स्कॉलर ऐप ज़रूर डाउनलोड कीजिए। स्कॉलर ऐप में वी आर पुटिंग अप daily current affairs. We are also putting up most important articles of all important newspapers. We are also putting up the daily quiz. इनफैक्ट अगर आप लोगों ने डेली क्विज भी लगाया तो साइंस एंड टेक के अगेन सवाल आपके सही होते हैं, तो डेली क्विज स्कॉलर ऐप पे लगाते रहिए। दीज ऑल आर फ्री रिसोर्सेज, इसके कोई चार्ज वगैरह नहीं। अपार्ट फ्रॉम इट आप कनेक्टेड रहिए। Scholar will be very happy to help you. I hope this session was helpful. For any doubts, please contact us at Skholar. Thank you.